We have the large glass ash. It has automatic opening vents, and they are in need of some tender loving care. And so I've got to get everything out of the greenhouse. They've had to come out and go in the ground, and I've been making a new little border outside the greenhouse. A couple of treasures I've sort of pulled out. I pulled out a plumbago. Now it's interesting that because Ian Roof, who works in the garden here, found a plumbago in the greenhouse, and he said, "I'm going to put this in the garden on that new wall." And I said, "Well, it won't leave you wasting your time." Was I wrong? Yes, I was. And I found also that I had left a plumbago in the garden over the winter, and that is alive and well. So this is all, adding to this climate change.
Hello and welcome to Talking Dirty. This time it is an August extravaganza at East Ruston Old Vicarage, that glorious garden on the East Norfolk coast, 32 acres no less, that we all love so much. And over at aforementioned garden, we have Alan Edward Herbert Gray, our happy and very handsome horticulturalist, looking oh so snazzy in some stripes. Very smart today, Mr. Gray, as ever.
Well, yes, it's exciting times, isn't it? There's something called Scribehound Gardening, and Jan Etherington came to see me a few weeks ago, and we sat and had a coffee in the garden, and we a little bit of a laugh and joke. She's a really funny lady. Well, she's a scriptwriter, and she writes that Confessions of a Long Marriage, with Joanna Lumley on BBC Radio 4. She's now doing the sixth series of that, which I think is quite amazing. So it just shows you how successful that is. She said some very nice things about East Ruston Old Vicarage in the piece on Scribehound, but she did give away my age, which I wasn't terribly pleased with. But never mind. There you are.
I love that. Just an instant name drop. We'll have a look out for that and look up the article. It's always nice. I'm always so excited when I see East Ruston Old Vicarage anywhere, even in places you expect to see. If you get one of these books of the top gardens of East Anglia, obviously you're going to be in there. But I'm still delighted to turn to that page and read about this wonderful garden that I hold so dear. And it is looking sensational at the moment. You have selected some show and tell for us on today's episode, which I know everyone will be thrilled about, not least me. And I've had a sneak peek. I can assure you it is as colourful, as technicolor as you would hope. So are you going to start us off with the first plant that sort of met you, that accosted you as you walked out the door?
I will, and it's a plant that was put on to me by our friend Jane Ann Walton. She put a post up on her Instagram site, and I think the post was actually in October, and this little plant was still flowering away, and it's this, and it's a phlox. And it's a phlox called Sugar Stars. And you can see how variable it is. You've even got a sort of a bright pinky one there. But this is the one the bicolored purple, mauve and white. We've got more of that than anything else. But the great thing about it is you plant it in your containers, it cascades over the edge. And it just keeps on flowering. You can trim it if you want to, and it will reshoot. Have a couple of weeks without flowers, but it will reshoot and redo it again. But it just goes on and on and on. It's like a Tory MP. It never stops.
I'm intrigued to know how many you sowed, because I have had small numbers of these before. And I have only really had the purpley ones, some of the paler, a bit more creme brulee-ish looking ones, because there is that lovely Phlox creme brulee as well. So I've had a nice range. I have never had that knock your socks off pink, and I've never had one which has got such a dark eye to it as yours. So did you sow a huge amount to get such variation?
We did sow quite a lot, actually. I think we had probably 200 or 300 plants. I mean, it was quite a sizable amount. But they're fiddly things. And what I did is I buy a good decent quantity of seed, and I clump them when I prick them out. I don't prick them out individually because they're very fiddly. I mean, somebody would, if you've got, not when you've got short time and everything else, but I just have to do it my way, and it's quicker and it's easier. That's why I think you get the variation a little bit. But I don't mind that variation. I mean, that to me is quite fun.
Yeah.
You just work your palette around that when you're planting your pots. Granny used to grow this. And what it does, it kind of has these, shall we take this one, and it has a longer and longer and longer and longer stem. And what she used to do, she used to make wire hairpins. And when we were children, me and my cousin Cynthia, we used to go along and we used to push this into the ground. So we pinned them down like a hairpin so that they made a neat carpet rather than flopping all over the place. And by doing that, then when the side shoots here where the leaves are, when they grow, they then put flower out as well, and you just get this wonderful undulating carpet.
Oh, all these
And
beautiful purple pom-poms in this instance. I am very jealous.
yeah, actually, I'm quite pleased with this. I think it's been a very, very good duo, and I've also got the pink form of this, which is doing very well as well. And I mean, I think that's what container gardening is all about, really. It's getting, you know, money for what you want the length of season, don't you? You want value. I think that's what I'm trying to say more
Well,
than anything.
talking of people saying nice things about East Ruston, I was catching up with Ara Anderson. I was interviewing her for the radio the other
All right.
day. Gardeners World's Ara Anderson, who of course was at East Ruston Old Vicarage filming for your 50th anniversary birthday Big Gardeners World special, which hopefully is still out there in the world for people to watch because it was lovely, even if it only scratched the surface. And she just said her socks were knocked off by your containers. What containers? She was remarking, and the desert wash, of course. Well, really all of it, but I think the containers had left a lasting impression on Arrett's mind.
Do you know this year has been extraordinary climate-wise because we've had all this hot weather, and there's some not so good things because I mean, everything is over very quickly. Roses, for instance, they're over very quickly because of the hot weather, and it's been a tiresome job keeping up with the watering and everything else. But you're talking about the desert wash. We were wandering around the desert wash the other day, and we came across this puya, and the puya is it's a bromeliad from South America, a hardy one, and it's never produced more than about 5 flower heads. This year, it's got over 30. I mean, that is amazing. And it's not a showy plant at all, but the stems are pink and they look quite sinuous, so it's rather nice. And as we were walking around the desert, we were going past the old Agave Montana, which is now, alas, over, and came upon another one that's just starting. So here these two, and there's two in actual fact in two separate areas, and they come up like huge, giant, fat spears of asparagus, and then you have that wait until 2026 for the flowers to open. So we got something to look forward to after this remarkable summer.
I know that it's inevitable. You have a big garden. You can't know every single inch of it, but you do know, fair, inside out. I love that it can still be an adventure. That you're always happening upon things. You're walking around and you're discovering things to be excited about, to look forward to. I mean, that is gardening all over.
Well, yes, it isn't. But when you're in a garden this sort of size, you can't visit every part of it every day. So it might even be a couple of weeks before you go to, all of it. And so consequently, there are bound to be surprises.
But even surprises in a tiny garden. I suppose the average busy person doesn't spend as much time in their garden as you do, so it all sort of equals out. I think it is wonderful. Gardening is always turning up interesting things that you weren't expecting.
Well, especially if you sow some seed.
Wow.
Every year I sow some seed of dahlias, and I got here a little selection of the colours that I got. And you will see that there's red with an orange throat. There's a very, very dark one there. There's this lovely pink one with dark striations on the petals,
That's
and
frightfully
there's
smart, isn't it?
a little magenta coloured thing here, which never opens flat. It's always campanulate in shape, which is something that I rather like. And the only trouble is, thought, is making space for all these things, because even with 32 acres, you need quite a bit of space to use all of these. But I think that these are quite hardy, so we leave them in the ground. And sometimes, they're the kind of plant, a bit like there's a dahlia called Dahlia coccinea variety palmeri. And that one, I got it from Avon Bulls many years ago. And that now makes a plant 5 or 6 feet tall at least, and almost sort of a meter across. It's just covered with bright orangey red single flowers. And I think some of the pollination from that has got into some of these. You can see the influence of those bright colours. So I love doing that. But a word of caution. I mean, it's not all plain sailing. A word of caution: for every dahlia seed that you germinate, you probably won't keep more than two in 100, maybe three. You might keep more to start with, but when you become more selective and you realise that better things are happening, that some get put on the back burner, we'll say.
So, how many do you think you've allowed to come to maturity this season?
I didn't sow any this season. I'm carrying on. These are 2 years old now. I'm carrying on with these for the time being because it's simply I want I want these to do more than one season, if you see what I mean. So to actually get the true characteristics of the plant, you need to do it for 3 years. It's a bit like the RHS, Royal Horticultural Society, doing plant trials, and we're doing plant trials at the moment. In actual fact, this week we've got a ginger, Hedychium. We've got an assessment of those on Thursday morning. So that would be sort of nice to hear and to see. And Andrew Gaunt, who has the National Collection, he gave us lots of the plants in this trial. He's saying, he wrote in an email the other day, he said, this trial is just so worthwhile. Forget the RHS and the, Award of Garden Merit and all the rest of it, but just for people that grow gingers. Mind you, he is obsessed with gingers. But it is important when you get a group of plants and the climate is changing, and plants such as Hedychiums, years ago there were about two or three that you could leave outside with impunity. This year we left, I think we have nearly 80 plants, and we left them all in the ground. And I think probably about 96, 97% of them came through and without. All right, so we didn't have a hard winter, but it's tantamount to climate changing.
Hmm.
So we'll see. It's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. Much like your show and tell today, we've had beautiful phlox, we've had dahlias, we've covered a spectrum of purples through to some delicate pinks and some real hot and punchy oranges. What would you like to hit us with next?
Well, I'm sort of thinking going through containers. Let's go through this old. There's an old African marigold called Cinnabar, and Cinnabar should have petals rather like that. But the bees and little pollinating things do their work, and they go on other flowers, and you get some slight variations. But this is an old plant. It was really, I think, championed by Christopher Lloyd de Great Dixter, who brought it back from, I won't say extinction, but I mean into popularity. It grows to about 4 feet tall and as much across, and it makes a big old lump. We grow it in containers here quite a lot because our containers are big and they splay out underneath the central ingredient, which is rather good. But again, you see, it's this kind of thing that goes on and on and on. And I'm going to be harvesting seed from these in the next few days. It's an ideal time. It's nice and dry. And we've had, this lovely sunshine. It's ripened the seed really, really well this year. So I'm going to be saving seed of those.
And it's lovely, much like with the phlox, to see the variation. You get those lovely dark, velvety, original, cinnamony, burgundy-ish petals, but then to get the big yellow splashes on them as well. It's so cheerful.
Yeah. Now, everybody knows that Amaranthus is love lies bleeding, but they don't all weep like love lies bleeding. Some of them are upright, like this one. And this is a green flowered one. This grows to about 3 feet tall, and it looks like a big fat green Christmas tree. And it is absolutely lovely as a contrast in your bedding schemes. This one is called Hot Biscuits. It's a tawny, almost the color of a ginger nut. And this one gets much taller, about 4.5 feet. And this one, I really don't know the name of it. There's a red one, because the red one suddenly appeared in our vegetable garden, and I think it may have been from bird seed or something like that. And we save the seed from that and propagate it every year. But the great thing about these is they are flowers, but they're really cereal crops from South America, where they're the principal ingredient of quinoa, or as they say in Norfolk, quinoa. And anyway, these are remarkable plants for the gardener to use, because if you grow from seed yourself, these have a remarkable ability to withstand neglect. A seed tray of these, I left it, and they looked sad, they looked pinched, and I thought, well, let's just clump. So I got little clumps of them, pricked them out individually into pots. Within 3 weeks, they'd opened up and smiled, and they'd grown to over a foot tall. I mean, they just go for it. So they're ideal. And, I always have these going quite late. In actual fact, we were planting some out last week to fill in some gaps. So they're very, very good plants and very easy plants for the gardener. And if you sow them late, you don't even need any extra heat. Another plant that I always use continually is this fluffy chap here is Ageratum, called Ageratum petiolatum. It's the one you see most of all in bedding schemes. It's called blue mink, and it's a horrible little dumpy thing that breeders have dwarfed I'm very much against dwarfing plants too much because I think it spoils the character. But some people prefer to have their bedding very uniform, as did the Victorians, of course, and they went to a great deal of trouble to do that. But this one grows to about 4 feet tall. It was grown originally for the cut flower trade because it flowers continually there throughout the summer, and you can pick it, and it has a good vase life, at least a week and a half. And it's just an excellent plant all round. We use this to fill in between newly planted perennials. If you've got perennials first year, they're a little bit gappy, and we use this as a filler between, and it runs through a border, and it looks lovely, and it's that kind of lovely soft blue that blends with almost any colour, and it looks absolutely stunning. So
One of
I'm
those great
pleased.
foil plants. Bet the pollinators are all over that as well.
Not so much, I
No,
don't think. No, no, it's strange. I haven't noticed that. But
I've never grown it. I've always assumed that that would be a real pollinator favourite.
the bees go on a little bit, but this is something that pollinators really love, which is
Yeah.
good old Joe Pyeweed or Eupatorium. And this is a well, it's a weed. This one is not a weed; it's a named variety, which is supposed to be garden worthy. Some people might not think so, but that's what it is. The original wild plant has probably got greyish foliage, and it's a plant of damp places, ditch sides and dike sides and all those sort of places. But it is a lovely bee and butterfly plant. And another one that's slightly more showy is this one, which is Clerodendrum bungei. And I can smell it now, it has a slight fetid smell it's not unpleasant, but I mean, it's there when you bruise the foliage. But look at that. I mean, that is fabulous. And you just see the bees and the butterflies creeping over that and probing in to get the nectar out. It's absolutely wonderful. And this has a habit of running. So underneath the ground, it'll make stoloniferous roots and it sort of runs along a little bit and then up it pops somewhere else where you weren't expecting it. And it's interesting because you can chop its head off and get rid of it if it's a nuisance. But if it's not, I mean, I've got this beside a trough and I have to pick the leaves off on the trough side so they don't get too shaded. But it's nice. And that brought me to thinking about how plants can anchor something to the soil, to the garden. When I remember reading in a book by Gertrude Jekyll, um, when she was planting new gardens, for instance, one of the houses built by S. Edwin Lutyens, they used to sort of look at the house sitting four square, and then there would be this flat area of garden. And what she tried to do, where you got this flat area coming down, she tried to plant something that billowed out. So it's a shrub that would grow up a little bit. So it anchored the house to its site. So it looks as if it was being cuddled by this greenery, if you like. That's a
Love
bit
that
romantic.
idea.
It's a bit romantic, but there you go. Never mind. Self-sows. We had an unusual self-sown this year, and it's this Cleome spinosa. We grew them in the bedding area last year, and they did exceedingly well. This one's got a little bit wilty, I'm afraid. And these are known as spider flowers. And that's the common name, but it's Cleome spinosa. And spinosa would indicate that it has spines, which it does, just along the edges of the stems here where the leaf nodes are. But it's a lovely plant and it makes this great spidery mass of seed heads, and you can save the seed and you can germinate them and have them the following year. But there's sort of three colours. There's purples, pinks, and whites. And for some strange reason, the white variety, which I think is called Helen Campbell, the germination is not as good on that as it is on the other two. So if you're thinking of a scheme to put the three colours together, buy twice as much white seed as you would the other ones, and see what happens. I haven't had a white one germinate in the garden of its own volition yet, so perhaps we have that to look forward to. I don't know.
This is exactly
Um,
the kind of top tip that you arrive at the Talking Dirty podcast for. Alan Gray and his many years' knowledge. So we won't say how many because obviously revealing his age is not our job. We'll leave that to Scribehand. But
Anyone can look it up. Thordis, this doesn't matter. 80 next year. What do you think of that? Hey, ooh,
and what do you get? The man
there
is
I've said it.
everything and he's turning 80. I am already panicked about that.
Well, there comes a time when people say, "Are you still planting trees?" And I say yes, because I mean I know that I probably never see these trees into their fruition, if you like. But what I will enjoy is them growing and watching them grow and see them for as long as I possibly can. And I just hope that there will be a people that come along after us. As you know, we've left the garden here to perennial on both of our demise. It would be nice that there's a tree planted by me that people can still enjoy. And if I had a hand in it, then, well, that's wonderful. I
We're
must
getting
be a
ahead
not.
of ourselves. I want to keep enjoying you as you are for quite a lot longer yet. So let's not look forward too
So
much.
do I. And I must be an optimist, though, because when you grow bulbs from seed, it's a longer process. And I started off with one seedling of this, and this is Crinum morii, and it came as a seed pod, a seed given to me by one of the people working at the Edinburgh Botanic Garden many years ago. Graham and I went on a visit to Scotland, and we were looking at gardens in Scotland. We went to the Edinburgh Botanic Garden, and there was this, and it had a seed pod on it. And I said, "What on earth is that?" And the seed is about almost the size of a golf ball, and it's a big round thing, and I just rested them on the top of the soil on a pot, and out came a root, and it went down from one side, and from the other side out came a shoot, and it went up. And it's amazing that that big seed will then produce a bulb, which produces this flower. And it takes about 3 years from seed to flower. And I'm waiting for these to make their seed for next year. You can see that here's the flower, and there's the little swollen bit there, which is going to produce a seed pod. And so hopefully we will have more of these. They are
Sensational.
yeah, they are sensational. They demand a hot spot, so you can imagine this year they have been in their element. And yeah, I mean, they're just amazing. They produce more and more flower every year, the bigger the bulb gets. But of course, you have to feed and water it to build up the bulb for next year's flowers, you
But like,
know.
I mean, white flower, but when you look at it, the green throat, as far as I can see on the video anyway, and then it even looks like the bud has a beautiful blush to it.
Yeah, it does. In actual fact, there's a flower bud there. Look, you see, it has that lovely blush pink on the edge of the flower bud. You'll see it there.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It gets paler as the bud gets bigger, and then it opens to this lovely white flowers, and they are scented. Yes, they are scented. Ooh, that was rather too close. But I mean, talking about gardening in general, containers especially, and one of the things I think that I should say is that if you have a big enough container, gardening container, dahlias do very very well in pots because they can be fed and they can be watered, and you're going to be looking at them, so you're going to be deadheading them. And if you want to leave a seed pod on, that's all you need. One seed pod is not going to be detrimental to the plant, but you can just have all of those sort of things to look forward to, and I think that's pretty stunning. But containers wouldn't be containers without foliage as well. And here we have a stalwart, which is something, again, I really knew about this at Great Dixter because Christopher Lloyd used to write about it. It's Helichrysum petiolatum, and straight petiolatum has grey foliage. This one is called limelight because it has lime-coloured foliage, which is lovely. This one is my favourite. But if you leave it in a container, it tumbles over the edge. It's a mixer, it's a hugger, it's a cuddler. It does all those things with other plants, weaving its way through. But if you train this stem up a cane, it then produces branches that go out horizontally, and it looks like a sort of some kind of weird little conifer. So if you use it as a dot plant and train it up like that, that's another little tip you see that not from me, that's from Mr. Lloyd because had told us that. I think it was in probably the Well-Tempered Garden or some one of those wonderful books that he wrote. But foliage plants have come a long way because this was one of Granny's house plants. This is a Tradescantia, and it's known as Maiden's Blush. And if you look on the back there, you can see that there's some purple and pink shading. In sunny weather, it bleaches out quite a lot, and when the weather turns duller and cooler, you get that purple cast on the foliage, which is rather lovely. And then this last year's stupid thing really was this um, this oxalis. It's called Plum Crazy, And I think it was a sport on the brown flowered, a brown leaf variety. And you can see it's got all of those colours, bits of cream, bits of pink, bits of white, and it has the same yellow flowers, which is a little bit hectic, but it's a very good foliage plant to mix and to tumble in. But if you want something, if you've got a shady garden, for instance, and I saw this plant growing in a shady garden in a church garden in London, in Victoria, many years ago. I've been to one of the shows at the halls in Vincent Square that the RHS used to put on, and it's a great source of finding new plants from all these small nurserymen that used to visit, and it was lovely. But then I got outside and I was walking back to find a cab to get to the station, and I came across this. Now that stopped you in your tracks, didn't it?
That is one of the most sensational leaves. As a coleus lover, obviously that this is in the same kind of category of stonking foliage that you just can't believe is real.
Absolutely. It's called Iresine herbstii. And again, it's a very fleshy leaved and fleshy stemmed annual plant. Well, it's probably perennial, but I mean, in this country, it's annual because if a frost will kill it. There's just so much moisture in it; it's not hardy at all. But that from a little cutting is now probably a plant that's 3 feet tall, and branches. But in shade, it looks lovely. In the sun, it bleaches out, and you lose a lot of that red colour, and it goes sort of wishy-washy pink. So it's a plant for shade. But as you just mentioned, coleus, or as we must now call them, solestamon, coleus, and this would make a wonderful shade bed. Select your colours, select your varieties to your taste. There's also a yellow leaf variety of this, which is yellow and green, which is, I don't quite like it quite so much, but this one is absolutely a stunning plant, and it just takes your breath away, I think.
Well, should you ever wish to make a Norwich City themed corner of your garden for your local
Yes.
football team, I'm sure the yellow and green version would tie in perfectly.
Yes, we could do that for the Canaries. Yeah, absolutely. That'd
I'm
be
delighted.
interesting, wouldn't it?
I'm delighted to report, by the way, that my little boy seems to be a big fan of coleus. We bought a few plants, from the garden centre at the beginning of the season, and he's actually watering them. Not
Oh,
like
well, that's
diligently or
marvelous.
religiously, but he is very keen on watering them. And I gave them to my mum when we went on holiday, and she didn't bring them back for a couple of weeks. And he kept saying, "Where are the coleus?" So he's obviously
Granny, my coleus.
yeah, more of a fan than his father, who hates coleus. But that's all right, as long as I've got one
Well,
of
I
them on
think, I
board.
think, I think quite often coleus are the kind of plants, as probably is the irisine that I was just showing you. They are the kind of plants that you either love or hate because they are very much in your face. We always grow coleus every year for really and truthfully to help pep up the greenhouses because they're an old-fashioned Victorian sort of kind of greenhouse plant that people used to love, and they used to put them in there for the colour with pelargoniums and things, and that's what we do. And there are some lovely varieties of coleus. If you go to a nursery, and if you can find the kind of nursery where they sell coleus not necessarily in boxes of mixed varieties, but in pots. You can actually pick your varieties that will actually look well together, and pick two or three that go really, really well together. And I mean, I'm just thinking on my feet here, the yellow and the green irisine with a yellow coleus.
That
There you are. Well, I'm working on this Norwich City pot now. I've got it in my head. I can see that if they do really, really well in following year and going forwards, as we hope they will. I think they won 1-0 last week. That surprised everybody, didn't it? Me knowing that. I think that we'll have to think about doing something in support of Norwich City Football Club.
it's always nice to think of new plants and new ways of using them. I must
Absolutely.
say, I had to show such self restraint because obviously I want all the colours. And as I get older, I realise that obviously allowing myself all the things I want is bad on many levels for my pocket,
Yeah.
for the look of my garden. And so I was very restrained. And I've got one, I can't remember the names, but one or a few plants of one very crazy coleus, and then a couple of plants of a kind of limey, the kind of
Yeah.
the more foil like coleus to offset the other one. I was very pleased with myself. It was
My favorite one that came in a mixed batch. I mean, I haven't picked a piece of it, but I should do, I suppose. But I can send you a photograph of it. It's chocolate and lime green together, in the same leaf. And that, I think, is a really, really smart looking plant. But, people are prejudiced. I remember there's a lady that came to the garden here. Her name is Hilary. Sadly, she's no longer with us. But her husband Rex and her, they were great plants people. I think they lived in Lincolnshire actually. And I was eulogizing about a plant, and she said, "It's no good, Alan. You can stop." And I said, "But you can't not grow this plant because there's a." She said, "Yes, I can." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Because it's orange." And she could not bear orange flowers.
You know,
Uh,
isn't it
it was
funny because we'll come to Flomo in a bit, but I was thinking that realistically, one of my biggest Flomos is actually Tithonia, which we've mentioned loads of times on this podcast. And I'm
yeah.
not going to do that as my Flomo. I've chosen something a bit different. But every time they come up on the garden party when we do the radio, and I've only had it a couple of times, seeing as I love orange so much. It's crazy that I haven't had more of it in my life, but it's just such a wonderful plant. And every time someone sends in a photo asking a question about it, I'm like, why don't I have it this year?
Well, it's one that slipped off the radio, but you have had your hands full,
Well,
so
yeah.
we will excuse you.
There's a
It
lot of
is.
things I haven't got this year.
It is a lovely plant, but beware when you buy seed. There are several different kinds, and you really want the unadulterated kind because that's the one that I've got in the garden. It is about 5 feet tall. It needs one substantial bamboo stake, and just to hold it upright, and then the other thing it just needs is a little bit of deadheading every now and again. And you've got it for the whole season. It is lovely. And not for nothing is it known as the Mexican sunflower. There is a yellow flowered form of it, but it doesn't have quite the punch of the orange one. And there's also a variety which is marketed, I think, as Fiesta del Sol. And Fiesta del Sol is a dwarf version of Tithonia. And I was going to say it's a rubbish plant. It's not a rubbish plant, but it's dwarf and it's dumpy. And I think that my preference is for the big and the bold and the brash, if you like, because I think when a plant has such bold flowers as Tithonia does, it deserves to be the big one.
Yeah.
It's we I don't know where we'd be without it in actual fact. And I think the other thing is that a lot of people probably maybe they don't have room for some of the taller annuals. I mean, if you take some of the taller Cleomes, the taller Cosmos, they do take up quite a bit of space. And not everybody has these huge amounts of space in their garden for that. And I suppose I can understand that being the case, that the urge to have dwarfer plants. But when I look back at my dahlias and I think some of these dahlias grow to 6 feet tall, I wouldn't have them any other way. If they grow to, I mean, they don't all grow to 6 feet tall. I suppose the shortest is about 2 feet. That's the reason I want to grow them for 3 years before I actually say, yes, this is a good one. Because I need to know how they perform on every year and whether eventually, a bit like Dahlia, coccinea, but variety palmeri, they will grow bigger as they get older.
Mm.
Much like Theo, your son.
Yes, yes, he's definitely getting bigger. He's in his big boy bed now. The last word on Tithonia is I've said it before, but I'll say it again, especially as it seems to be one of the words of this podcast today, cuddly. I love how cuddly it is. It's such a soft, strokeable plant. And I know
Yes.
people like Jimmy Blake love a spiky plant, but I actually don't love a spiky plant that much because I'm phenomenally clumsy and I'm always falling about and I don't want to get accidentally stabbed by my plants. So obviously there are plants that are spiny in my garden, but if it can also be cuddly as well as beautiful, I'm all the more of a fan.
Well, I was quite a great admirer of Jimmy. I mean, I always have been. And I liked the idea of all those sort of tall spiny cactus in amongst his plantings. And I just thought, I'll look at it in your garden, Jimmy. I can enjoy it as much as I need to, but I don't want it in mine because I don't think that cacti associate well with other annuals.
Yeah,
And I
he
know
does
that
it very well. I'm so pleased. You're right. I'm so pleased he does it because I love to look at it, but particularly because I'll have to handle them and overwinter them. I don't want to do it myself.
and you can't do it when you've got a child around
No,
either.
no, definitely not. It's hard enough keeping away from the few spiny things I've got. I keep having to move them higher and higher as he gets taller and taller. Eventually, they'll just get ejected. Um,
Yeah.
Talking of things, I mean, Alan's not flow mowing over cacti or Jimmy's cacti, but things we are flow mowing over. I have to be so restrained. My phone always used to just be full of screenshots of plants, and now I have to make it very, very few select things that really, really are on the wish list. And I was looking back through my screenshots as we prepared for this podcast, and just jumping out at me of all the various things I've been saving and FOMOing over and wish listing was this beautiful little clematis that Christoph Howell had shared. And he is at John Massey's garden of Ashwood Nurseries. I'll have to link to the Hepatica special that he did for us. We had so much fun with it's one of the loveliest man ever, John Massey. And Christoph Howell is always sharing really beautiful plants on his Instagram page. So go follow him. But it was this gorgeous, gorgeous little clematis, pink bells. I'll look at the name. It was a species, Clematis addisonii, I think, which he said was quite a rare one from Western Virginia. These little pink, thick-petaled looking flowers, and then the flowers were set against summer turned to those lovely seed heads, those lovely sort of greeny, wispy clematis seed heads, and it was just
Yeah.
sensational. And I don't love massive showy clematis, if I'm honest, or clematis, however we want to say them. Like the real big dinner plate ones don't do anything for me, but the more demure, the alpine ones, or anything that's a bit of a bell-shaped flower, I am right there. And I just thought, I have no idea how rare it is, or whether I'll ever be able to have it, whether I'll ever have the situation for it, but that was an absolute stunner.
That reminded me of something that happened in the garden here because Penny Snell, she used to be the head honcho at the National Garden Scheme, and she came to the garden here one day, and there was a great a stirring for Geranium robertianum, the little tiny magenta flowered thing with the purple stems and all the red leaves and all the rest of it. She said to me, "Do you grow the Alba form of that?" And I said, "Yes, you're standing on it." And she said, "Oh, oh." But a demure little flower like that, lots of people wouldn't even look at. And I think I've got something here that you might like actually, because there's this.
We missed that out of the show and tell.
It
That is a
did. I'm
definite
sorry.
FLOMO.
It fell behind the box of on my desk here, and I didn't see it. And I suddenly remembered it, and I thought, well, this is called Pseudogynoxus chenopodioides. Now, it used to be Senecio confusus, which is much, much easier to remember. And I think if anybody, wants to look this up, it comes from South America. It's a scandent plant. It's not hardy. Again, we take cuttings every year. And it needs to be quite dry throughout the winter to get the plant through the winter. It would die back almost to the sort of a rootstock, if you like, and then suddenly you'll see it in middle of spring. It suddenly sort of starts putting a little shoot up, and off we go again. And it grows in a season about 15 feet, dare I say. And you can, plant this at the base of something, and I've got it scrambling through a climbing rose, which is shocking pink. And you can just imagine the hectic sight of these two together. But if you want, you could train it through anything at all. And the other plant I've had success with this year, which I haven't brought a piece of, but I can send a picture, is the climbing Bommeria. And the Bommeria is really like a climbing Alstroemeria. They are related, and it just goes up and up and up and up, and it gets to about 12 feet, and then it flowers with these huge heads, masses of flowers. And the one that I've got is bright scarlet orange, and it is a stunning thing. And I love plants that you can just put at the bottom of something, a climbing plant or a shrub, and they grow through, and then they suddenly surprise you later in the summer. We were talking about surprises earlier. Well, you can't get better than that, I don't think.
You really can't. I love a flower that has a big kind of boss in the middle, like a big old button in the middle of it.
Yes. Well, you can see the difference in there between the two. You can see where, let me see, this one is the older flower because it's got all its middle is all sort of puffed out, and this one has yet to do it. So you can do that. You can tell when daisies are getting past their sell-by date. If you're picking daisy-shaped flowers, if you look at the central disc in the middle of the daisy, if it's all tight, it's wonderful. It'd have a lovely shelf life. But if it's half open, it won't last quite so long. And if it's fully open, it won't last hardly at all. So, I mean, that's just a way of judging, which is a good one to pick and which is not a good one to pick. And I always used to do this when we used to grow single-flowered asters because you could look at them and you could think which is the fresh one and which is the tired one.
Oh, he's full of tips today, isn't he? He's doling out knowledge left, right, and centre. I mean, I know we're used to it, but still, I feel like you're on particularly fine form today, Mr. Gray. Do you have any flomos to share on top of all of this glorious show and tell?
No, to be quite honest, I hadn't thought of anything, but I'm sure there is.
You always have a long, long wish list.
I tell you what I would like to do. I would like to try and widen the varieties of nerines that we grow. Because yesterday I started taking the nerines. They've all come into growth now, or they're just starting. The early flowering ones, these are not the hardy ones, the pot grown ones. That they're just starting to open their flowers. The brilliant scarlet ones are just starting, and then we'll have the pinks and the purples and all the rest of it. And they have the most wonderful crystalline I don't know what you would call it, texture, I suppose, to their petals. And when the sun shines on the petals, they glisten. And you've got this sort of twinkling effect on the petals of them. And I would like to increase the number of varieties of those that we have. Very kindly, Ed from Cotswold Garden Flowers, Ed Brown, he sent me some nerines as a present, which was a couple of years ago. And I don't know whether he ever listens to this podcast, but if you don't, Ed, you should, because it's quite good fun. um, but they have done exceedingly well, and we've been able to sort of propagate them and spread them about a bit with other people. So it's increasing. But I'd like to increase the varieties of those, and I think the best collection I think I ever saw was in one of the Rothschild houses. I know that money is no, money is no object there, but that even with that saying, if you like, they do things so exceptionally well. They're very tidy. They garden to the highest standards. So if you can go to any of their gardens, do go and have a look. And there's at Waddesdon Manor, of course, there's my pet hate, which is all this carpet bedding. But that is a fashion from the Victorian period. The Victorians and the Edwardians loved it. And take the big flat lawn outside Sandringham House, His Majesty the King's residence in northeast Norfolk, northwest Norfolk. That was originally a carpet, a parterre, and the parterres were actually they mimicked, if you like, the patterns on a Persian carpet with low bedding, and occasionally then the fashion came in to put something in the middle which was tall and to sort of alter it a little bit. But Waddesdon, they still carry out that today, and you can see the most finest examples of Victorian bedding there if you go and have a look. And it'd be lovely to take photographs, and just if you like it, you could emulate it at home. If you don't, well, don't. But it's nice to see how it was done.
Nice to see, exactly. Someone's got to do it. It's a bit like cricket. I'm glad it exists. I don't want to play it. I don't even want to watch it, but I really want it to exist.
Oh, but can't you? I mean, I think the thing about I don't want to play it either, but I do like the sound of leather on willow.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's a lovely sound. I mean, I'm all about sound, obviously. I'm a radio person through and through, but I know nothing about cricket. I'm sorry. If you love cricket and you live for cricket as well as plants, I'm delighted. No one in my family played. I know nothing about it, but I just think it's a wonderful thing, and I'm so glad it's out there.
You never had a cricket tea. That's worth going for. And the other little tip, at the end of the day, there's one more. Cricket tables, they always had 3 legs because 3 legs will stand level. 4 legs, and you've got a rickety table. Tip of the day.
Yet another. And what an array of tips. What an array of tips we've had today. Alan, thank you so much for being such an entertainment for the last however long it's been. What a wonderful selection of plants for us to FLOMO over. And I feel like I can live vicariously through you. My garden is all right. Joe Sharman came round of Monk Silver Nursery the other day to give me some of his spare courgettes and runner beans and green gages. I'm so glad he's got such a glut of green gages. They're just wonderful. I'm very grateful to him. But he had to come in my garden. I was like, no one's allowed to see my garden, the devastation that's been wrought over the last few years. But he actually saw it, and he he didn't leave immediately. So there we go. That's something. But yes, it's certainly not East Ruston or Vicarage over here, and I'm glad I can live vicariously through you, Alan, and get lots of inspiration. So thank you very much. And until next time, happy gardening, everybody.
Happy gardening, everybody. Bye bye. And I've forgotten what it's called. Oh dear, what is it called? You're going to have to edit this, aren't you?
That's fine. I don't mind. Right then, retake. Just start again. I'm not sure I did the best start. Should I just start from the top?
Yeah.
Right. Hello and welcome to Talking Dirty. It is another special talking all about the what. Actually, I'm going to start that again. I got lost immediately. Right. Cough. Do everything I need to do. Take 3.
Burp and fart. An alpine trough. And what I've done. Sorry, I can hear banging. And Fiesta del Sol is a load of old rubbish because it's a little dumpy thing. It's not rubbish, but it's a small thing. I think it's a bit like sunflowers. Oh, my phone's ringing. Sorry.
Right. Got itchy nose anyway. Stood up. My leg had been in the same position for all that time. I had to limp my way to the back door. Got stuck.